Hello there, Internet. My name is Mogwai, and ahead of us lies yet another brilliant day in the arena. As today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be showcasing Gruul for the first time since our comeback. I haven't made a deck with this color combination, which is green and red. And we have a deck built around, as I like to call him, Sanic, aka Ornery Tumblewagg, which is a creature from the latest expansion in Outlaws of the Thunder Junction, and is 3 mana 2/2 Brushwagg Mount. I think I said that correctly. Probably not. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Whenever Ornery Tumblewagg attacks while saddled, double the number of +1/+1 counters on target creature. In order to saddle him, you need to saddle him with at least 2 power. So you need to tap a total of creatures that adds up to that, from 1 or more. As we do have some creatures that may have 1 power, like Cenote Scout, depending on what she explores, and of course Rubberbell Maverick, but these can become 2/2s through multiple copies of themselves or through the right hits, as Ornery Tumblewagg is very, very easy to saddle in this deck, essentially. And what we have here is an aggro deck, but a bit of a more big brainy aggro, I guess, because while this deck may seem a little bit simple at first, even though not really. There's a lot of different copies of cards, and there's a lot going on here actually. But at its core, it's a deck that's trying to develop creatures, spread out threats, and apply +1/+1 counters. We have a bunch of cards that synergize around this concept. Most of our cards essentially generate counters, if not absolutely every single one of those of the creatures at least. Like Cenote Scout, get a +1/+1 counter if it hits a non-land card. Rubberbell Maverick, when we exile him from the graveyard, we can put a +1/+1 counter on anything. We got Inti, Celestial of the Sun, who gives +1/+1 counter on target attacking creature if we discard a card. We'll dive a little bit more into this card in a bit. Curium Beastcaller gets a +1/+1 counter whenever you cast another creature spell. So it's when you cast the creature, not when the creature enters the board, which is important to note. So even if there's a counter spell happening, because you cast the spell, you already trigger this ability, which is important to note. And she racks up the +1/+1 counters, and when she dies, she gives them to something else, which makes her an ideal 2-drop for this kind of deck. As then we have Doomscar Warrior and Alena. Again, we're in a situation where the vast majority of the deck is rotation proof, but here we have a card that isn't. This card will be rotating in August, unfortunately. I still have it incorporated onto the deck because it just fits it like a glove. Alena just functions super well with this strategy overall, as she has first strike and reach, but the important thing is her ability, or their ability. It's 2 of them. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put X +1/+1 counters on another target creature you control, where X is Alana and Alena's power. So herself alone, she will give +2/+2, so 2 +1/+1 counters. That creature gains haste until the end of the turn, by the way, so you can actually apply this onto a creature you played that turn and give it haste, which is really, really neat. But the cool thing is that Alana and Alena actually wants to be the recipient of a lot of +1/+1 counters, because you'll be able to effectively duplicate these counters through her. So a lot of times with Ornery Tumblewagg into Alena and Alena, I will give the +1/+1 counter at the beginning of the combat phase that Ornery generates onto Alena and Alena, and I'll sequence the abilities in a way so that the Alena and Alena will resolve after. So she'll get the +1/+1 counter, and then she'll pass over the counters with her ability, allowing you to give more power to something else. The big thing in this deck is being able to double the number of +1/+1 counters on a creature. That's how we get our essentially game-ending attacks set up, right? Because we rack up a bunch of +1/+1 counters, and then we find the way we either apply them to a creature with trample, or we give them trample with Inti. Inti is essential to this deck. Whenever you attack, you may discard a card. When you do, you put a +1/+1 counter on target attacking creature. It gains trample. Very important. It gains trample. That's so essential, because we can have a 16/16 Ornery Tumblewagg, but if it doesn't have trample, you get chump blocked, then it's for nothing, right? We need to be ending the game as swiftly as possible. We are ultimately an aggro deck. So Inti helps us, give trample, but also Inti has a very neat ability that says whenever you discard 1 or more cards, you can exile, or you exile, you can't, it happens automatically. You exile the top card of your library, and then you can play that card until your next end step. So because of the lure curve of our deck, we can essentially use Inti's ability to make sure that when we discard a card, we don't lose card advantage in the process. And he happens to work really well with Bitter Reunion, which is a 2-mana enchantment that we're running that allows us to essentially make our hand better. Because we're an aggro deck, we need to find our combo pieces as early as possible. So being able to develop this and fix our hand, you know, get rid of excess lands, for example, or fish for lands if we don't draw into them, we can overall improve the quality of our hand and the speed at which, you know, we're able to combine these cards too. And a very neat end touch, because there's several different variations of this card in red. You know, 2 mana, discard a card and draw 2 cards. That's a pretty staple sort of thing for red to do. But the reason why I chose Bitter Reunion over the others is because of the fact that this is an enchantment that I can sack for 1 mana and give creatures I control haste until the end of the turn, which is really important against control decks, where we need to, after they wipe us, they board wipe us, we need to be able to keep applying pressure from the very get-go, and this enchantment helps us do that. And also works really well with Inti, because if we discard a card with Inti on the board, then we get to exile the top card of our deck, and we are essentially drawing 3 cards, though we have to play one of those 3 immediately. Otherwise, it fades away. But it's a very nice way to actually net us some card advantage through these sorts of plays that otherwise would not be easy to achieve card draw-wise for this color combination specifically. As the Doomscar Warrior is like yesterday's Archpriest of Shadow. It's another backup unit. This one has Trample with a 4/3 stat line and can give another creature +1/+1 counter and Trample and this ability for a turn, which says that whenever the creature deals combat damage to a player or a battle, which is like the Siege, you may look at that many cards from the top of your library. So if you hit them for like 6 damage, then you look at the top 6 cards of your library, and then you choose either a creature or a land card, which is the vast majority of our deck, essentially, and you put that into your hand. So a form of card draw as well, but also a trample creature that we can use as a win condition later down the line as well. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the deck list right there. We got Hard-Hitting Question for very cheap, efficient removal that makes use of our developed creatures. Snakeskin Veil to protect our key creatures from single target removal, which is very prevalent in Best of 1 ranked standard. While also giving a +1/+1 counter, all for 1 mana. This card is, you know, it fits this deck perfectly. And a one-off of Trash the Town to have a little bit of, you know, I like the flexibility of being able to push for more counters or use this as card draw, or in a pinch, if we don't have Inti around, that we can use this to give our creature trample as well. So I like it as a one-off there. We have 24 lands, you know, which is a really good number considering, you know, we're an aggro deck, but we're not quite as turbo as others. We're definitely slower than the likes of Mono Red Aggro, and unfortunately Mono Red Aggro is actually not a great matchup for us a lot of times. It depends on what we draw, but one of the reasons why is because they have access, they play a lot of copies of Shock and Lightning Strike, and a lot of our creatures are initially weak, right? Because our plan is to build up these creatures with +1/+1 counters, the base stats that they have are low. So units like Quirion Beastcaller, which can just do great things, really fall short if they get shocked upon entry, right? So red in general can be rough, but this deck does a lot of things that mono red can't do, which is very nice. It's definitely way more resilient, but it does play at a slower pace. And I would like to try to design this deck for best of 3, because I believe in that kind of scenario, with like in real Magic the Gathering, I could make it so that with a proper sideboard, this deck could really be overall more reliable than mono red in a best of 3 format, I believe. So I will potentially jump into that later, but I wanted to showcase a Gruul deck, you know, a bit of I don't do aggro decks too often, but you know, I want to showcase all playstyles, and I put a lot of thought and work into this deck, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. It definitely went through a lot of heavy optimization. You know, it took me a while to run 4 Intis, but it turns out, you know, if you have other Intis in your hand, you could just discard the other Inti with your Inti. So it's not really a problem, right? And it took me a while to figure that out. But yeah, very fun deck, especially for those of you who like, you know, creature-based beatdown decks. I had a blast recording with this. I think I had some really cool games today. And I'm going to stop talking. Thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for daily Magic the Gathering content. Hope you enjoy today's games. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. All right, here we go. Sonic, go Burr. Let's continue the climb. We are currently, I believe, in Platinum 3 as the season reset. And we're continuing to climb, hopefully making it to Diamond soon. Knock on wood. As It is a bit of a slow hand we got here because our first creature is a 3-drop. We could draw into one later down the line, especially since we're going second. It's hard to say no to this hand, though. We have protection alongside 3 lands and a source of red, which is really important. Because we only really tend to need 1, so having him in the opening hand is really nice. As they lead off with a Conduit Pylons. When this enters the battlefield, it's reveal 1. But it's a colorless mana, and we see a Virtue Persistence, so we can assume that this is a slower multicolor deck. Reactive in nature. With double Conduit Pylons, they can't really play any sort of spell that's not like an artifact. Or that. I wish I would have drawn you last turn. Whenever another artifact or creature you control is put in a graveyard from the battlefield, put an Ola counter and Vat of Rebirth. Okay, so it's a Reanimator deck. I mean, that's... Every single card that we've dropped so far is... Reanimator-esque. Now, I could play Bitter Reunion to fix my hand a little bit, but I'm going to go with Cenoti Scout instead. Draw another land there, and seeing if we can set up this Ornery Tumblewagg with protection, but I think we're going to have to play it regardless. This is a key decision here. Are the treasures tapped? A tapped treasure token. So, if they attack, we can't really use that treasure the same turn to develop Ornery into a Snakeskin Veil. And I feel like that will be important. Though speed is also important. Right now, like... My instinct is telling me to go for the Cenoti Scout. Get yet another land. I don't know if we should be worried about counters, but we can drop the Karplusan Forest and play the Bitter Reunion. Discard you, draw 2 cards. Keep these in the back. We get a treasure token. And now we can use that treasure to potentially pop the treasure for a Snakeskin Veil, so we can develop the Ornery Tumblewagg alongside Robo Maverick, potentially. We have just enough blockers to trade into this Generous Plunder. They don't attack, meaning they don't really have an answer for that. I feel like Halana and Alina is ultimately better than just playing the Ornery Tumblewagg, because I can then give it haste. I'm going to develop the Cavern of Souls. I'm going to choose human. I'm going to go with Helena and Alina because it's a human ranger. So this spell cannot be countered. And I do have that treasure in the back to go for the Snakeskin Veil if we want to. We go for the combat. Alana and Alina will trigger. And we'll give +2/+2 to this. And now I can attack with the Cenoti Scout. While still having backup blockers for that Generous Plunder. Don't expect them to trade here. Unless they want the Vat of Rebirth to trigger. There's the Bloodfell Caves. Right now, there's no real, yeah. In response to the removal, we're gonna go for the Snakeskin Veil, which should protect this. We have Hexproof. They have 2 mana left. They cannot trigger the Vat of Rebirth, and that's it, baby. That's it. Good start. Patience. You know, you gotta assess the matchup, be wary of the nature of the deck, and assume that they're gonna have removal, especially if they're playing black as a color. They're definitely gonna bring some variants of removal, and just waiting for the right opening and making sure you have that protection in the back. You know, even though it may seem like you're playing a little bit too slowly, this deck can really snowball really fast. It has quite a bit of burst with the with the counters. And with this enchantment right here, we can always, you know, pump up and go for haste. But Alana and Elena give haste to the creature that they're pumping the counters on, so I can develop the Ornery Tumblewagg and attack with it on the same turn, which is really neat. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Round 2. All right. Yeah. Yes, we keep. It's a 2-lander, but we have a Cenote Scout and a Rubber Belt Maverick. The question is, who do I lead off with? I think Maverick. We really like Inti there, and we like the land. But let's take the land first, because we have the Curium Beast color, which we do want to prioritize. We see a mountain. So I'm just going to develop the Curium Beast color. I'm not even going to attack here. I'm going to preserve the Rubber Belt in the back. Just in case they try to haste on us. Guys, I see a mountain and I expect mono red, but we see it's Gruul instead. Okay, never mind. But the Curium Beast color is in. And I do believe we want to get rid of that. To slow them down. So now that we know that it's not mono red, now we do start pulling the trigger. And we hope they don't have something like, okay, they're just spotting that. All right. All right, we want to go for the... We're going to play the Ornery Tumblewagg, and we're definitely expecting them to burst on us here. But we have slowed them down. And we have NT in the back. They can play the Outcaster Trailblazer, and then they can develop a 5-drop. They just spend the mana on a Topiary Stomper, though. That will allow them to draw, but they have 2 mana left. We get rid of that. I'm gonna Sados Inti. And then I'm gonna enter the combat phase. And I'm going to discard this land, triggering Inti's effect, giving it trample. And then with Ornery Tumblewagg, duplicating the counters, baby. Getting it to a 16-16 stat line. This is the power of this deck. This is the burst. And it's over! And it's over, baby. There's different ways to aggro. And this, I think this is a cool way to aggro. In my opinion. That was dope. That was dope. The snowbally threat of this, and then thinking that 2 mana, maybe like a lightning strike or something. I don't know what they had in the back, but that was just not going to be enough. If you let this guy attack, it's Chover. All right, Buster Wolf. We have a Keeper. We have a 3-lander. We have a Cenote Scout. Lead off with the Copper Line Gorge. Develop the Cenote Scout, explore, keep that there. Ornery Tumblewagg is a very good creature to look forward to here. Okay. The Sunset Revelry allows him to spawn 2 human tokens. I can always hard-hitting question one of them. This seems like a misuse of the card, but this is allowing me to push damage from the get-go, which I think is really important. Okay. Saint Akira. I read that like Shakira. Maybe it was the avatar. I don't know. A keeper. Definitely a keeper. We got the Rubber Belt Maverick to really make sure our incoming draws are good. We got Quirion. There's so many cards that are just so hard for you to pronounce, man. But we got the Beast Caller. We got Sanic. We're good to go. Caves of Koilos. Rubber Belt Maverick. We draw into Elena and Alina, which is nice. We have another land there and a Doomscar Warrior. Whom, I mean, we have like 2 different options for 4 drops, but depending on what happens, I think that's a good. Those are a good series of cards to keep, I think. Cavern of Souls and Phyrexian Toxic. Okay. A Phyrexian Rat. Okay, is this like ABZAN poison or something? Each opponent sacrifices a creature. Okay. It is definitely a poison deck. I am going to take the hit from this. As I play the Karplusan Forest, we are going to develop Ornery Tumblewagg here. And we're going to swing. But I'm gonna put +1/+1 counter on this so I can block into the rat. Basically. Okay, I don't know what this is. Whenever a creature controlled with toxic deals combat damage to a player, that player gets an additional poison counter. Yeah, so we're not letting you break through that easily. Okay. Okay, so we have the ability to it's gotta be a 4-drop here. Or we could Quirion Beastcaller into Rubber Belt Maverick. There's no Death Touch. So we need to start applying some pressure though. What about Doomscar Warrior? I can tap that. I feel like Elena is just better. I can saddle you. It's dangerous, but... and just attack with you. Another Blight Belly Rat. This is a cool card though. The Toxic 2 is so menacing. Because if this thing connects, it's applying 3 Toxic. So it's almost like GG. They have 3 mana open. We want to split our threats, essentially. We're going to go with a Doomscar Warrior. I'm gonna saddle you. We enter combat. We apply the ornery buff onto Helena, which will translate over here. And then we attack with these two. And we apply the buff onto the Quirion Beast Caller, because that way, if they have some sort of removal, then my Ornery Tumblewagg is still threatening. That's a huge hit, though. Okay, you can give something Death Touch, sure. But you die. No, that's bad math. That's... Level up! That was incorrect. They had to block with the 1-3 onto my 10-10 that doesn't have trample. They derped there. It's a shame because this is a really cool like original deck. Like I haven't run into this variation of Toxic before, but it's clearly built around the Rot Priest. This card is doing a lot. The thing is, it's expensive, right? Like even the triggering of the ability is not cheap either. But it's a really cool concept. And they just kind of like threw there at the end. Though I don't know if they could come back from this setup. Like this is the power of this deck. Like we would just... And if we sequence the counters, right? Like we end up with multiple threats. And that's, you know, instead of going all in on just one and being vulnerable to like a removal and not losing to that, we spread out. Elena and Elena is just... I'm going to be sad when this card rotates because it's so good for this deck. And yeah, that block wasn't it. Let's go for that one. All right, Credo. Gonna make me lose my Platinum 2 virginity. As this hand will suffice. It's not perfect. One could say it's a bit slow, especially against mono red. We're gonna lead off with the Restless Ridgeline. Let's do like mono red going first. Mono red going first sometimes can just draw the nuts, and no matter what you play, like you're just susceptible to it. I'm naturally worried about them having like a shock or something for this. If I were going first, like I wouldn't be so pressured. I'm gonna try to see if I can play the Quirion Beast Caller and make a comeback. But this card being removed, the Kumano onto that, just no shock. No shock. That should just don't shock me. No. They had the nuts. What are you gonna do? When the nuts come for you. I can't kill this. I need some sort of like boost, but unfortunately... It's not an issue with the deck, it's just mono red going first sometimes is unbeatable. Especially if they draw all the pieces. We have to take this hit, like, there's just no way around it. We go down to 3, which is lightning strike range. And just as we got to stabilize, we lightning strike me. If they have the monster one, the monster rule, then it doesn't really matter how my blocks are because I lose to it anyways. Oh my god, what a draw. I just cannot one-shot them, unfortunately. I can give myself like 5 counters, I can give myself 10 counters, 12, but I just do not have the hit. The only way is if by some miracle they just do not happen to have... I also can't use the hard-hitting question onto this because they'll draw off of it and they'll definitely draw into lethal. If they don't have it already, which they probably do. GG. I could have probably done things differently. But to be fair, that, like I said, MONORED going first and turboing like crazy it's just that deck has the potential to beat any deck, and that's just something you gotta come to terms with. MTG GOAT. Are you playing MONORED too? I'm gonna keep this just because we have Inti. And we can Quirion Beastcaller into Inti. Drawing into a land would be really neat, obviously. No cut down. The Witch's Vanity, though. Okay. Okay, we do draw. Now we have protection with the Snake Skin Veil. By forcing that trade, we don't allow them to get the...
Something suspicious is going on. Perhaps it's not much. I've always hated crowds. This isn't how things were supposed to go.
I just gotta hope that they ran out of removal. I really need this Ornery Tumblewagg to stick. They have 4 cards in hand. This is the moment where we're really vulnerable. There's a Gix. Okay. Just please don't kill him. I'm gonna saddle the Ornery Tumblewagg. I mean, they have the food, so I think that's why you know the. Yeah. By hitting him for 8, I am able to search for a key card here. They could potentially connect with Gix and draw a card. But that's super manageable. I cannot like play Alina and deal with this though. At least not for now, and I need to... Okay. Demotion avoided. All right, Arrakis. It's pretty dense on lands, but we have double Explorer here. So this hand actually works. But I do want to lead off with the Rubber Bell Maverick. Just because I want to make sure, yeah. I can get rid of you at this point. But we're obviously keeping Sanic there. That's fine. It's completely fine. We need to apply pressure here, though. I'm gonna double pump the Cenoti Scout, so I have a 3/3 on the board here. That's invulnerable to... That bat is annoying. We played the Bitter Reunion to try to cycle through our deck and find a hard-hitting question. I have to be careful with my cables because my mic is really, like the cable in my mic is really frail, so it can really go off at any moment. So I have to make sure that I'm careful with the cables. But yeah, we have, okay, they go for the Phyrexian Arena. Okay, we need to punish that. We need to punish the hell out of that. Land will be fine here because with the land, what we can do is give the Ornery Tumblewagg haste. I deal less damage, but I'm splitting my sources of damage so that all these represent the threat. Phyrexian Arena will provide them with value, but we need to just keep applying pressure here. Bat. They're going to play another bat at this point in time. Maybe I should just double the counters on that, to be honest. I don't know. It would have been nice to apply like one counter to this so that I could saddle it. Hard-hitting question would be an excellent top deck here. They feel the pressure. We get the Bitter Reunion back. Oh my god, what the fuck is this? Auto tap. Let's discard this land and draw two other cards, who also happen to be lands. They're getting too much value though. These bats have really gotten the best of us here. We bait them from for a duress though. They may just have too much discard, like running bats and duresses, and that's just silly. Hard-hitting question. One of our big units. We have a lot of good top decks here, but the fact that hard-hitting question also works to potentially lethal them here. Yeah, you heard me right. Potentially lethal them. They have to follow it up with like... Wait, what the hell was that? Do they not have an answer? I guess they don't. Oh my god. Let's get it. Oh. CK2. This is a hand that's low on lands, as we're used to, but Rubber Bell Maverick really helps me feel confident in keeping it. We have the Cavern of Souls, which can allow us to cast Alena and Alena. And we got the Forest for everything else. Obviously, we're going to be hunting for lands. Having both Doomscar Warrior and her in the opener isn't the best thing in the world, but having hard-hitting questions allows us to essentially handle the mono-red matchup, the potential mono-red matchup better. One of the things that's important with hard-hitting question is don't waste it on units that aren't inherently problematic. Try to preserve these for the prowess units, and more than anything, try to preserve these for the slick shot show-off. This is very valuable removal, and its value sometimes goes over your head because it's so easy to cast that you're just like eager to throw it away. But it's very important to find, like, to use it on the right targets. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. As we do see the mountain. Shocker. I'm gonna flip it like that because I can use the Cenote Scout to fish for that land to draw it out of my... And by doing this, I'm essentially gaining a draw, right? Like, I'm able to develop the Cenote Scout while also draw my land, so I get like a free unit on the board, basically. Second mountain, oh my god, I wonder where it'll be. Nani? No way you attack. And now we play you. That's a prowess unit that is momentarily vulnerable, which means we bop it. We're an aggressive deck too, so let's swing with Maverick. Call that a turn. Get rid of this threat when we can. Which means when they're tapped out, because otherwise, like, that is never working in any other situation. But we do want to preserve this one. The good thing about Alena is that they have reach and first strike, which is a good matchup into the slick shot show off. The problem is he's got 3 health. There's this fucker. And again, good draw there. Inti, Hard-hitting question. Get rid of this massive threat. I'm going to decline. No reason to do this right now. We have a good curve ahead of us. Keep the pressure. Another one. Shock. Gets rid of Inti. But now, ladies and gentlemen, now is when we have some fun. Human. Now the question is, do I go for the Doomscar Warrior or Alana and Alina? They seem to have quite a bit of removal left. So I'd rather they use it on this than Alana and Alina. And this way I can also threaten some good draws from the get-go, which we need to like regas. So let's go with Doomscar Warrior. And let's apply the buff to Cenote Scout and keep the Maverick in the back now. We connect. And we can look at the top 2 cards, and we see a land and you. I'm going to pick up a land because that means next turn I can Cenote Scout into you. Since we've been able to answer their early threats, thanks to this amazing card right here, we are not under immediate pressure. I may want to block into this, though. If I can prevent 3 damage. Unless they go trample. The moment they go trample is the moment I bail. Nope. Another Doomscar Warrior, which could be really good here. But at this point, we want to make sure that they can't fly over us with another slick shot. So I think now is a good time. And I'm going to keep Trash the Town there, honestly. It's a good card here. Alana and Alina, and I'm going to apply this to you. Because I give you haste, and I can apply some pressure here. This drops them down to 9. I'm vulnerable to like a counter attack. I'm going to swing just with this, drop them down to 11. Play it safe, keep some blockers in the back. Alana and Alina makes it so that they can't just like set up another slick shot, show off, and get away with it. Because the Aura enchantment, the diabolical one, if you want to play it directly without plotting, it costs 2 mana. So they need 4 mana to be able to play that into that. And then that would be their entire turn, which is a hit that we can handle. And we can retaliate on. But keeping the Cenote Scout in the back protects us against some trample procs without having to lose you. Yeah. It's a heavy hit. That is cocky as fuck. Let's punish that. Let's punish the hell out of that. Oh yeah. Die. That felt good. Alright, Gilver. This hand is heavy, but I also really like it. I'm going second, so with the Cenote Scout, I can really fish for those lands, and I can try to set up the Kyrian Beastcaller. Early on, we draw into another land. Beautiful. Cenote Scout. Another Scout. We'll keep. There's Vadmir. I'm going to swing. If they want to trade. That's my phone, by the way. Sorry about that. I could play the... Like, I'm definitely expecting removal from them. So the question is, do we want it on Inti or on Kyrian Beastcaller? I'd like to trigger the Kyrian Beastcaller before it's removed. So I'm going to develop Inti. I have more Intis in the deck. But... Let's drop the Doomscar Warrior. Actual good counter to that. Totally thought about that. I'm gonna take the hit. Really happy I made that decision. Because now I can do this. I could have used this to draw, but instead I'm just gonna set up the beast collar. Really going wide. Even if the beast collar comes in late, like because we went with the sequencing, we're able to get really good value and tempo. There is Jasper, Laughing Jasper Flint. Omega Lol is inside. Definitely threatening. We draw into an answer though. One hell of an answer at that. I think I'm gonna get rid of Vadmir though. Vadmir is growing too much and it's getting out of hand. And then I can just threaten them with Alana and Alina is very nice, but the threat of Jasper is very real. Ah, fuck it. Thankfully, Vadmir only triggers once per turn, so we're still safe from it. Getting rid of Vadmir is more important than Laughing Jasper Flint at this point. 3-3, 2-2, 3-3. Let's go with you here. Let's swing with everything. And let's take it, baby! Nice!